Sony might not release the PS6 in 2028. This is due to varying reasons, which we'll be discussing in this video. Sony has a 8-year release cycle for its console, but maybe this cycle they might be breaking pattern. Let's discuss. First, the reason is the console has not yet reached its peak. The PlayStation 5 has not yet reached its true sales peak potential due to supply chain issue early in its life cycle. The global semiconductor shortage during the COVID-19 pandemic severely constrained Sony's ability to manufacture enough PS5 units to meet demand. As a result, many gamers who wanted a PS5 at launch had to wait months or years to get their hands on one. This delayed entry into the PlayStation ecosystem for a significant portion of potential user base. For many gamers, the PS5 will be their first PlayStation console ever. These new users just now exploring what the PS5 has to offer after finally securing a unit. Sony likely wants to give this wave of new users more time with the PS5 before transitioning to a new generation. With supply catching up to demand now, the PS5 could still have years of sales growth ahead as it reaches millions of new users or buyers. Releasing a PS5 in 2028 risks cutting the PS5 lifecycle short before maximizing its full market potential. Therefore, Sony may choose to extend the PS5 generation further to fully capitalize on the dedicated user base they are still building. Another reason could be they might be mimicking Nintendo. So just like the delay in the release of the Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo is adopting a cautious wait-and-see approach with the next console. Historically, Nintendo has maintained a 5 to 6 year cycle between their console releases, but the Switch has disrupted this pattern by being their first console to break from this tradition. This unconventional move from Nintendo might serve as an inspiration for Sony to reconsider their own release strategy, especially given the current market landscape and the evolving nature of gaming technology. By observing how Nintendo navigates this deviation from their usual pattern, Sony can assess whether a similar approach will be beneficial for their future console release, including the potential delay of the PS6 beyond the expected 8-year cycle. Another reason will be with the emergence of the PlayStation Pro. The PS5 Pro is set to release this year, promising a 10% CPU increase and 45% GPU uplift if the leaks are accurate. Sony has followed a pattern of releasing a mid-generation hardware refresh since the PS4, which had a PS4 Pro model. However, the situation surrounding a PS5 Pro seems quite different from the previous console generation. The core problem is that developers are not fully utilizing the PS5's capability, making a Pro model seem less critically necessary at this stage. This traces back to the pandemic and semiconductor shortages, which severely limited PS5 supply early in its lifecycle. With so few PS5 consoles in the market initially, developers made the economic decision to create cross-generational games that could run on both PS5 and PS4 hardware. As a result, the library of true PS5 console exclusive games that push the hardware to its limit remains relatively small even now in 2024, since developers are still commonly targeting the last-gen PS4 as well. They have not needed to maximize the PS5 performance profile. This contrasts with the PS4's mid-cycle, when its hardware constraint had been thoroughly tapped by that point, necessitating the PS4 Pro as a stopgap. The current market landscape sees cross-generational development as still being the norm, lessening the argument for a PS5 Pro right now when the base PS5 hardware isn't even close to being fully leveraged yet. Unless the uplift provides substantial benefits for PS4 games compatibility, the PS5 Pro seems premature at this phase of the generation. Sony might want to ship enough PS5 Pro to make economic sense. Sony may choose to delay the release of the PS6 further in order to maximize the remaining sales potential of both the base PS5 and the Pro model. Rather than cutting the current generation short, they could extend the PS5 cycle to ensure they fully capitalized on the installed user base, giving the PS5 and PS5 Pro more overlap time allows Sony to continue milking revenue from the latest generation before going all in on the expensive process of launching an entirely new console platform. So while the PS5 Pro may have been strategically timed for a certain launch window, disappointing sales could convincingly argue for pushing the PS6 debut and reset the timeline. Sony would likely prioritize maximizing the current generation profitability over adhering to a regimented hardware canvas. Xbox is in a weird time right now. It is still unclear whether Xbox will release a next-gen console in the coming years. Xbox lost a lot of ground in the Xbox One era due to some unpopular DRM policies. Although they reversed it later, the damage had already been done. They also didn't make enough console exclusives to sway people to get to the Xbox One, while Sony came out with bangers after bangers. Even Phil Spencer admitted to this.
Not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. There isn't really a great solution or win for us. And I know that will upset a ton of people, but it's just the truth of the matter is that when you're third place in the console marketplace and the top two players are as strong as they are and have in certain cases very discrete focus on doing deals and other things that will that kind of make being Xbox hard for us as a team. That's on us, not on anybody else. Our vision is that everybody who's on console has to feel like they have a great experience and they're a first-class citizen. They've invested a ton in our platform. But we are not in a position, and I see it out there. I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see console share shift in some dramatic way. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games. So when you go and you're building on Xbox, we want our Xbox community to feel awesome. But this idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think doesn't really lay into the reality of most people. Like 90% of the people every year who walk into a retailer to buy a console are already a member of one of the three ecosystems, and their digital library is there. This is the first generation where the big games that they're playing were games that were available last gen. When you think about Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft, like the continuity from generation to generation is so strong. I see a lot of pundits out there that kind of want to go back to the time where we all had cartridges and discs and every new generation was a clean slate and you could switch the whole console share. That's just not the world that we are in today. There is no world where Starfield's an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5. That's not going to happen. So what we have to do, and we have this unique vision because we see what creators want to do. Creators want to build games that can meet players on any screen. People play with their friends regardless of what other screen they're on. And the console is the core of the Xbox brand. There's no doubt. So like we will stay focused on making sure that console experience is awesome. But I know some people want to hold us up of just being a better green version of what the blue guys do. And I'm just going to say, like, there's not a win for Xbox in staying in the wake of somebody else. We have to go off and do our own thing with Game Pass, with the stuff we do with xCloud, and the way we build our games. Sorry, I was a little long-winded.
No, that was perfect. And unfortunately, we do
Microsoft Xbox One has taken a new approach with Game Pass and buying up major publishers. Their strategy is to build a great library of games to sway people into Game Pass ecosystem, and this seems to be working somewhat. In the future, Xbox will become console agnostic, and Game Pass is the beginning of that journey. The future may be closer than we think. Xbox is not releasing a mid-cycle console like they did the previous generation. They recently did a business update regarding the future of their console and software business. This was to clarify rumors surrounding Xbox bringing all their console exclusives to other platforms. In the update, they addressed the rumors and clarified that they are bringing a handful of games. This was basically Xbox's way of testing the water on their journey to become console agnostic. Depending on how well their strategy goes, Xbox might not release a next-gen console. This will leave Sony under no pressure to rush their next-gen console. Sony might just leave the current PS5 to fully mature and establish a good user base before bringing a PS6. It is clear that Xbox is taking a very different approach this generation compared to their mistakes with the Xbox One. By focusing heavily on Game Pass, acquiring major studios, and building an expansive game library, their goal seems to be locking consumers into their game subscription ecosystem rather than selling dedicated console hardware. The recent rumors about bringing some Xbox exclusives to other platforms aligns with Microsoft's vision of Xbox becoming a much more open console agnostic brand in the future. Game Pass is just the first step towards separating their gaming portfolio from proprietary hardware. If this strategy pays off and Game Pass gains mainstream ubiquity across devices, Microsoft might eventually decide to forego dedicated Xbox console release altogether. Their focus would then be solely on the Game Pass service and cloud gaming technologies. In that scenario, Sony would no longer face traditional console competition and extremely lucrative exclusive games driving hardware sale. With Xbox moving to a platform-agnostic model, Sony would take a more patient approach with the PS5 lifecycle. Without being pressured to radically upgrade the PlayStation's hardware capability to stay ahead of the next Xbox console, Sony can choose to fully milk the PS5 for everything it's worth. They can establish an incredibly large install base over many years before moving to the expensive development of a new PlayStation generation. So, in conclusion, the landscape of gaming console is undergoing significant shifts, with Sony potentially reconsidering the release of the PS6. Factors such as the delayed peak potential of the PS5, inspired by the Nintendo Switch delay, and the emergence of the PS5 Pro are influencing Sony's decision-making process. Additionally, Xbox's strategy to shift towards a console-agnostic future with a focus on Game Pass further complicates the situation, leaving the industry in a state of uncertainty regarding the traditional console release cycles. With the PS5 Pro offering an enhancement to the current generation and Xbox exploring new directions in gaming services, the need for rushing into a next-gen console release diminishes. Sony may opt to allow the PS5 ecosystem to fully mature and capitalize on its growing user base before transitioning to the PS6. This approach aligns with maximizing profitability and ensuring a strong foundation for the next generation of PlayStation consoles. Ultimately, the decision regarding the release of the PS6 will likely be influenced by a complex interplay of market dynamics, technological advancement, and the strategic consideration within the gaming industry. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to Tech Gambino. Have a nice day.